Hey guys, AB here from B&H, and welcome to the third video in our multi-part series on how to get started recording audio for video. Today I'm going to go more in depth into the process of properly setting your recording levels, as well as give you some tips to get the best possible audio out of your recordings. First things first, before we talk about actual levels in terms of loudness, we need to discuss the two main types of levels when recording audio: mic level versus line level. Mic level is pretty self-explanatory. It's the level of the audio directly from the microphone into your camera, typically with no interface in between. Mic level is actually quite low and requires a preamp, like the one on your camera, to get it up to line level. Thus, you would use the input knob on your camera's preamp to adjust just how low or how high you want that incoming level to be. A signal that's line level, on the other hand, is normally audio that is fed from an in-between source, such as a mixer or a PA system. Line levels run much hotter or louder than mic levels, so you don't want to plug a line level source into a mic input. You'd almost certainly get terrible distortion and ruin your recording. But here's the thing, most consumer and prosumer DSLRs and mirrorless cameras utilize a 3.5mm mic level input. So when recording straight from a mic to your camera, that's typically the only option you'll have. This may be an issue when you're trying to connect a mic with an XLR output to your camera. If that's the case, you'll have to incorporate a third-party adapter box, which, depending on the unit, opens up the potential to hook up multiple microphones to your camera. It's important to note that the advantage to using an interface other than your camera is that most dedicated interfaces have preamps that are significantly better sounding than ones found in cameras. So for the best possible audio quality, an external interface and/or recorder is the preferred choice for recording audio for video. We'll get deeper into this topic in the fourth video, where we discuss external recorders versus in-camera recording. Let's talk about gain staging, which is the process by which you set the gain or level of incoming audio into your recorder to achieve a target volume that is hopefully mostly free of noise and distortion. Before we dive any deeper, it's important to keep in mind that all recording devices, whether camera or audio recorder, have inherent self-noise, which means that when you record an external source, you're also going to be picking up the sound of the device itself. There's also room noise, or ambience, which will be picked up by the recorder. This is one of the most important reasons why you need to record your audio at a clean and healthy level, because you want to minimize as much of that self-noise and ambient sound as possible. Okay. Now we can get into gain staging, or setting your levels. Since audio is measured in decibels, or dB, most modern recording devices have meters that are typically marked with decibel levels to show you how hot or loud the incoming signal is. The highest number on the meter is usually 0, followed by negative numbers as the signal gets weaker. The first general but super important rule when recording audio is that you never want your meter to hit 0. Why? Well, if you go over 0, you are in the realm of distortion, which essentially degrades the sound and makes it unusable in post-production. You want a clean signal at all times, and keeping your input levels in check will assure that that happens. Conversely, you don't want to record a signal that's super low, because you may introduce external noise, or the noise of the preamp, when you boost it after the fact. Let's look at the meter on the Zoom F8, for example. We have a signal going in, and you can see that I've set the input level to fall somewhere around -12, give or take a few decibels. This gives us a nice level to capture the sound properly and leaves us enough headroom, or safety zone, to prevent clipping and distortion. Many digital meters like this one here are color-coded with the familiar red, green, and yellow hues. Typically, when your audio is in the green, you're in the clear. No clipping is going to occur. When you start to get closer to 0, you'll notice the meter will turn yellow. This is to let you know that you're approaching the end of your safety zone. Of course, if you push the levels even more, the meters will eventually turn red, indicating that you're clipping and most likely damaging your audio. Whenever possible, stay mostly in the upper range of the green, maybe even a bit into the lower levels of yellow. Remember that when adjusting the input level of your preamp, there is no exact rule. What I mean by that is when you record audio for video, and audio in general, your adjustments are going to be dictated by how loud the source audio is. Think of the human voice, for example. Someone who is very soft-spoken will require more input gain to get the voice in that sweet spot, whereas a person with a booming voice may only require half the amount of gain. When recording spoken voice, it's best to do a sound check before you begin. Ask the talent how loud they'll be speaking and set your desired level accordingly. If you keep the target range in mind, you'll have more consistent, high-quality audio to work with once you're done recording. I just want to bring up a quick point about static recording versus level writing. Static recording is the most common way to record, and it follows a set-it-and-forget-it approach. You figure out the sweet spot for your levels and leave things alone, with the confidence that you'll have plenty of headroom to work with after you're done. However, there are some situations, like a narrative project, where a subject may be going back and forth between being very loud and very quiet, in which case you may want to make sure someone is manually keeping a hand on the gain knob. For example, if you know that the upcoming scene requires a character to scream, you could simply back the input gain off to prevent the audio from clipping, then push it back up before the dialogue resumes at a normal level. Just like when setting initial levels, it's a good idea to do a practice take to see just how far you need to make those adjustments on the fly. The techniques we just discussed will enable you to record high-quality audio, but there are additional tools and techniques which may assist in this process. 1. Limiters. Simply defined, a limiter is a tool used to reduce louder parts of a recording without affecting anything else. Typically, you would set a threshold or limit beyond which you don't want audio to go. In the event your audio source gets unexpectedly loud, the limiter would prevent that source from crossing over the threshold into the distortion range, thus saving your audio. Professional limiters give you a lot more control over your settings, but most consumer, prosumer recorders utilize an automatic limiter, which simply toggles between being on and off. Cameras and dedicated recorders will almost always have a limiter option, and some mics even have built-in limiters. But you have to be careful with this feature. Why? Because too much limiting can alter your sound for the worse by squashing your audio. So I'd recommend that you listen to the incoming audio with and without the limiter engaged to make sure your signal is not getting overly processed. If you feel that it's affecting the sound negatively, you could always turn the limiter off and set your input gain lower, as we discussed previously, to prevent clipping. 2. Low-cut filters and pads. Some microphones and audio recorders have additional built-in features that can help with certain shooting conditions. A low-cut or high-pass filter, when activated, will cut out lower frequencies, such as ambient room noise or low rumbling noise. This is really useful if you really are only interested in capturing dialogue and you don't want extraneous low-end noise to interfere. Many of these filters are fixed somewhere between 75 and 85 Hz, though more professional gear may even offer up to 120 Hz. Like with the limiter, take a listen to what your audio sounds like with the filter engaged and disengaged. You want to make sure that it's not cutting out too much low end, which could make your audio sound a bit thin. Many microphones and preamps contain a pad, also known as an attenuator, which is a switch that reduces the incoming signal level by a fixed amount, often 10 or 20 dB, to prevent it from clipping in the recording. This tool is very useful if you're recording incredibly loud sources, such as an industrial environment or a live band on stage. If you find that you're getting extremely hot levels, even when your gain knob is way down, you may want to engage a pad to allow you to better adjust the incoming level. 3. Split level recording. Another way to safeguard your audio is to record your mic to 2 separate tracks on your recorder or camera. That way, you can keep one track at a nice, present level and the other at a much lower level to ensure there's no clipping. Some external recorders actually have a feature that automatically records to 2 tracks at once, giving you a safety track in the event there is a problem with the main track. The Zoom F8, for example, has a dual-channel mode that utilizes this feature. Those are the main reasons we want to maintain headroom when we record. And once we reach the post-production segment of this series, I'll go more in depth into why we make those choices in the recording stage. I hope this video has been helpful. And make sure you stay tuned for the 4th video, which covers recording to an external device versus recording directly to your camera. This is AB, and we'll see you next time.